Go ahead and start. Okay, go ahead and start with the prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Svapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sidivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagna Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sati Devi Pranamami Haripe Vanchakalpatiruvasya Kirupasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord Krishna, son of Vasudeva, all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Good morning, everyone. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, Text 25, which is the appearance of Śukadeva Gosvāmī. I'll begin with reading the Sanskrit. Tatra bhavat Bhagavan vyasa putro yarchaya gam atamano napekshaha alakshya lingo nijala tusto vrtas cha balair avaduta veshaha. Read one more time. Tatra bhavat Bhagavan vyasa putro yadrchaya gam atamano napekshaha alakshya lingo nija labhya tusto vrtas cha balair avaduta veshaha. The word-for-word translation. Tatra, there, abhavat, appeared, Bhagavan, powerful, Vyasaputra, son of Vyasadeva, Yadrchaya, as one desires, Gam, the earth, Atamanaha, while traveling, Anapeksha, disinterested, Alakshya, unmanifested, Linga, symptoms, Nija Labha, self-realized, Tusta, satisfied, Vrta, surrounded, Cha, and Alai, by children, Avaduta, neglected by others, and Vesha, dressed. The full translation is as follows. At that moment, there appeared the powerful son of Vyasadeva, who traveled over the earth disinterested and satisfied with himself. He did not manifest any symptoms of belonging to any social order or status of life. He was surrounded with women and children, and he dressed as if others had neglected him. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The word Bhagavan is sometimes used in relation with some of the great devotees of the Lord, like Śukadeva Gosvāmī. Such liberated souls are disinterested in the affairs of this material world because they are self-satisfied by the great achievements of devotional service. As explained before, Śukadeva Gosvāmī never accepted any formal spiritual master, nor did he undergo any formal reformatory performances. His father, Vyasadeva, was his natural spiritual master because Śukadeva Gosvāmī heard Srimad Bhagavatam from him. After this, he became completely self-satisfied. Thus, he was not dependent on any formal process. The formal processes are necessary for those who are expected to reach the stage of complete liberation, but Sri Śukadeva Gosvāmī was already in that status by the grace of his father. As a young boy, he was expected to be properly dressed, but he went about naked and was uninterested in social customs. He was neglected by the general populace, and inquisitive boys and women surrounded him as if he were a madman. He thus appears on the scene while traveling on the earth of his own accord. It appears that upon the inquiry of Maharaj Parikshit, the great sages were not unanimous in their decision as to what was to be done. For spiritual salvation, there were many prescriptions according to the different modes of different persons. But the ultimate aim of life is to attain the highest perfectional stage of devotional service to the Lord. As doctors differ, so also sages differ in their different prescriptions. While such things were going on, the great and powerful son of Vyasadeva appeared on the scene. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in darkness of an ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Venerable Śukadeva Gosvāmī Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet. I'd like to convey my respectful obeisances unto the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who are presently here and otherwise, and they can fulfill the desire of everyone, just like desire trees, and they're full of compassion for the fallen souls. Thank you for having me this morning and allowing me to speak here. So if you were or weren't present for the previous verses here, this is a bit of an interruption, I suppose, to what has been going on. So in the previous verses, I can read those real quick just to give some context to where we are. And 17, in perfect control, Maharaj Parikshit sat down on a seat of straw with straw roots facing the east, placed on the southern banks of the Ganges, and he himself faced the north. Just previously, he had given charge of his kingdom over to his son. In verse 18, thus the king Maharaj Parikshit sat to fast until death. All the demigods of higher planets praised the king's actions, and in pleasure continually scattered flowers over the earth and beat celestial drums. Then the previous verse 24, O trustworthy Brahmanas, Maharaj Parikshit is asking, I now ask you about my immediate duty. Please, after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances, and specifically those who are about to die. So that is Maharaj Parikshit referring to his sva dharma duties. He wants to know what his duties are, his earthly duties, so to speak, in contrast to the other duties that one has, which would be the Sanatana Dharma, which are the eternal religion or the eternal duties. And he's cursed to die, and he wants to know from the sages more specifically what his duty is during these last days before he dies. And he's already decided now that he's going to sit to fast until death, and he's essentially wanting the approval of the sages that he's doing the proper things and that there's no type of controversy after he leaves. And he left the kingdom to his son. And then in the purport, it's explained that the sages are not unanimous on what they want to have done, and they're prescribing different things, but in a way to, from the other lectures that I heard, he's actually only approving, looking for approval for his actions for the most part. And so that's most of the context. And here it starts with, at the moment appeared the powerful son of Vyasadeva. That's the arrival of Śukadeva Gosvāmī. And in this verse, he's referred to as Bhagavan. And usually, of course, the first time I heard that, it's usually always referring to Lord Krishna, but it's explained that this can sometimes be used in relation to great devotees of the Lord. And the text elaborates that Śukadeva Gosvāmī traveled over the earth disinterested and satisfied with himself. And that sounded familiar to me, and I did a little digging to where I had heard that before and found that in Bhagavad Gita, specifically in verse 317, and wanted to share again what that means. And that was pretty intriguing to me, that at an advanced stage, one would be disinterested, and also when it relates to devotional service, it was curious that it almost seemed that enjoyment isn't something that is encouraged, certainly not in relation to the material world. When it comes to devotional service, that's a different matter, but that I guess one could say that the goal is to be satisfied in the self, that's where one's, I guess, pleasure arises, come that one is self-satisfied. And this is from Bhagavad Gita 3:17, that but for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. And so this applies also specifically to Śukadeva Gosvāmī in this case, in this moment here when he's arriving. And it says, a person who is fully Krishna conscious and is fully satisfied by his acts in Krishna consciousness no longer has any duty to perform. Due to his being Krishna conscious, all impiety within is instantly cleansed, an effect of many, many thousands of yajna performances. By such clearing of consciousness, one becomes fully confident of his eternal position in relationship with the Supreme. His duty thus becomes self-illuminated by the grace of the Lord, and therefore he no longer has any obligations to the Vedic injunctions. Such a Krishna-conscious person is no longer interested in material activities and no longer takes pleasure in material arrangements like wine, women, and similar infatuations. So this sounds exactly like Sukhodev Gosvami is being described here, and further, as that relates, this interest in the arrangements such as women here. Last night we were reading Bhagavatam, the fourth canto, and that was all about marriage and sex relations, and there were some interesting things there, while here it states that those are something of uninterest, but this is about King Puranjana, and it's about having successful relationships. And I just wanted to share briefly this here. This is by coming home, taking his bath, eating nice foodstuff, getting refreshed, and searching out his wife, King Puranjana came to his good consciousness in his family life. In other words, a systematic family life, as enjoined in the Vedas, is better than an irresponsible, sinful life. If a husband and wife combine together in Krishna consciousness and live together peacefully, that is very nice. However, if a husband becomes too much attracted by his wife and forgets his duty in life, the implications of materialistic life will again resume. Srila Rupa Gosvami has therefore recommended anasaktasya vishayan. Without being attached by sex, the husband and wife may live together for advancement of spiritual life. The husband should engage in devotional service, and the wife should be faithful and religious according to the Vedic injunctions. Such a combination is very good. However, if the husband becomes too much attracted to the wife due to sex, the position becomes very dangerous. So it's not that the attraction to women, one has to be completely disinterested or unattracted to women, that there is a proper way to go about it, and then the Vedas give instruction on that. And there was a very interesting story that Srila Prabhupada shared here that I would like to share as well. That yeah, after I read it, it'll make an impression. I suppose this is helpful in understanding the material matters of humans and relations. It goes, the story is told that at one time a man, very much attracted to a beautiful woman, wooed the woman in such a way that she devised a plan to show him the ingredients of her beauty. The woman made a date to see him, and before seeing him, she took a purgative, and that whole day and night she simply passed stool and preserved that stool in a pot. The next night, when the man came to see her, she appeared very ugly and emaciated. When the man inquired from her about the woman with whom he had engagement, she replied, "I am that very woman." The man refused to believe her, not knowing that she had lost all her beauty due to the violent purgative that caused her to pass stool day and night. When the man began to argue with her, the woman said that she was not looking beautiful because she was separated from the ingredients of her beauty. When a man asked how she could be so separated, the woman said, "Come on, I will show you." She then showed him the pot filled with liquid stool and vomit. Thus the man became aware that a beautiful woman is simply a lump of matter composed of blood, stool, and urine, and similar other disgusting ingredients. This is the actual fact, but in a state of illusion, man becomes attracted by illusory beauty and becomes a victim of Maya. Thought that was quite the interesting story to help understand our material attractions. And so back to this verse here with satisfied within himself. And the purport of this verse 119.25, Srila Prabhupada points out that Śukadeva Gosvāmī heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from his father, Vyasadeva, and that is when he became completely self-satisfied. And that's a pretty large testament to how elevated he is, because further in the purport, we're told, and we have likely seen that it takes, it requires many thousands of yajna performances and many other things. And yet he became fully satisfied simply after hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from his father. And that alludes to some of the reasoning as to why here in this text he's referred to as Bhagavan, which Prabhupada translates Bhagavan here as powerful. And then in the purport further, Srila Prabhupada refers to the formal processes that are necessary for those to reach a stage of complete liberation, which Sukhodev Gosvami bypassed because of his position, and how he explains in relation to Maharaj Parikshit how this process can differ, just like the opinions of doctors. That applies here. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we have the verse 7.76, which I believe we're all familiar with. Haranama, Haranama, Haranamaiva Kevalam, Kalo Nasti Eva, Nasti Eva, Nasti Eva Gatira Anyata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting of the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one advances perfectly in spiritual life. Okay, this verse states that there's no other way other than chanting the holy name of the Lord. While, yes, but it's emphasized that just like doctors have different opinions, so also do sages have different opinions on how that can be done. Because, of course, outside of this chanting alone, one has a life that one conducts in, and one ought to conduct oneself properly in relation to the material world. And usually one accepts a formal process of some sort, as we do, such as accepting a spiritual master, chanting 16 rounds, following the 4 regulative principles, honoring prasadam, and all these are considered a formal process. And similar to these things that we do, the sages have different opinions on how this process can be, but here it's more specifically just related to the final days of one's life, since Maharaj Parikshit was cursed to die from the snake bite. He's preparing for this. And then otherwise, in this verse, we have Śukadeva Gosvāmī did not manifest any symptoms of belonging to any social order or status of life. And the social order, status of life, we know as Varna and Ashrama, or the Varnashrama Dharma. And when one takes birth, one is born into a certain social status, and then with time takes on a certain set of duties. Yet here it's stated that Śukadeva Gosvāmī in the Sanskrit, he's described as avaduta, which is here translated as disinterested. And he doesn't appear to have any duties, and he isn't caring for what's going on around him, and he's dressed as if others neglected him. So for those around him, it appears that one just doesn't know what type of ashrama he's in. And further, it's described that in his youth, he would walk around naked and be uninterested in social customs, and was even described as a madman. And just like in his youth, he had people following him. And then here it also says that he is surrounded with women and children. And that can be just because it's such an unusual sight to see someone like this, and to the point where he's being described as a madman. And it's good to understand that although he seems like a madman, that this is not an artificial position of not caring. And it can't be compared to something like someone in the mode of ignorance for not caring about their surroundings, possibly a homeless person or so. And I found this interesting, that there seems to be a cycle with the process of self-realization, or maybe life in general. I think for me, in the mode of ignorance, much more heavily than now, I would often say, in my youth, I would often say things like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. I don't care," when my father would talk to me and say things. I was just completely disinterested. I didn't care. I don't know. It's, I guess, sometimes common with teenagers. And then eventually in the process of self-realization, one gets this, I guess, a bit of an awakening, and has this very keen attention to detail that every little thing matters. And it has to be a cautious progression sometimes, for me at least, that not living alone, having a family, not everyone's engaged in the same things, to sometimes overlook some of these little things. But still, even the smallest things can be very astounding. Just having the realization that we're conscious living entities having this experience. And I've had these times of looking at nature in different ways that I hadn't done before. And then later, as we hear here, that it kind of reverts yet again, that one becomes completely disinterested in things, and no longer seeks satisfaction on the material plane. One is satisfied within himself, and completely engaged in devotional service and in Krishna consciousness. We just have a few minutes left. I'd like to open up if anyone has any comments or corrections.
Hare Krishna, Acyuta-bhava, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisance. All glory
my humble
to Krishna
obeisance.
Prabhupada. Yeah, and I don't have any comments or corrections. I just was thinking of the last sentence that you said, that after practice of after practicing Bhakti Yoga, coming to the point of realizing that, how did you put it? That nothing else.
Disinterested?
Yeah, coming to the point of being disinterested, and yet it is not like the stage where you say, I don't care. In ignorance, we say, I don't care about this thing or that thing. But the point of disinterest that you are describing is a point where you do care. It's not like we don't care. We use that word so carelessly. It's like, I don't care, but that's not the disinterest, right? And so it's like a inner realization that one is living a conscious inner realization that comes from a conscious living or a conscious practice. And it is a different platform, and that gives a certain type of happiness to the spirit soul, and that is a different situation. And I was hearing one of the classes, and where the speaker was saying that we are all we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. Rather, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So that is really even though that is the essence what we are practicing, but the point that you made to the end, the kind of detachment or the kind of feelings that one develop after practicing Krishna consciousness, is because one comes to the realization, or at least consciously come to think that this is just a human experience I'm going through, because I got this material human body. And you fully realize that every experience in life, it's the spirit soul, the person who is really experiencing. And just because we got a human body, we have this human experience, but we don't belittle those things. Okay, I don't care about this one or that one. A human experience teaches us so many things, but the ultimate teaching that comes out of the human experience is learning this essential thing, that I am a spirit soul who is experiencing or going through this human experience. And I really appreciated how you presented the topic. It's really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's no other comments. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful Krishna conscious day.